India's tragedy is that freedom from colonial power did not bring freedom from domination. Instead, domination was nationalized. The colonial Sahib's whip was replaced by the Babu's file and the Neta's smile. Together, they built a structure we now call Babu Neta Raj, a nexus of political looting and administrative control and domination that survives by keeping citizens poor, dependent, and despondent. Everyday loot. The Babu controls survival through paperwork, licenses, and files. A ration card, a land record, a trade license, a municipality permission, a police no objection, each is turned into a gate that can be opened only with a bribe or a connection. The Neta thrives on this because what the Babu sells in secret, the Neta distributes in public as largesse, whether at the ward level for locals or at the state and national level to big businesses. Subsidy announcements, loan waivers, electricity concessions, free housing schemes, all are advertised as the generosity of the leader. But in reality, they are the repackaging of what citizens already had a right to. Examples abound. A vegetable seller must pay local police or municipal inspectors to keep her cart on the street. Otherwise, her livelihood is seized. And even after paying, their livelihood is up to discretion and regular hafta. A migrant worker spends weeks at government counters to get an ID card until a party agent helps him in return for his vote. Then the same politician strokes regional populism against the migrant for more votes. A farmer's land record lies stuck in the revenue office, but election season brings the promise of an instant update if he backs the right candidate. Yet neither does the file move, nor any real guarantee of land rights. What should be automatic rights are deliberately made scarce, so that every citizen feels dependent on the Babu Neta loot domination machine, which keeps people in misery, poverty, and despondent. Manufactured dependency. This dependency is not an accident. It is the very fuel of the system. Bureaucratic design itself ensures that citizens remain entrapped. Rules are not meant to guide action, but to obstruct it. A single license application requires multiple signatures, each counter demanding new proofs, affidavits, or no objection certificates. The system is not broken. It is built to extract. At the bottom sits the dockyard clerk, the patwari, the constable, each with the power to stall a file. At the top sit secretaries who draft regulations so dense that even trained lawyers struggle to decode them. In between is a chain of intermediaries, touts, middlemen, brokers, party agents. Together, they form what can only be described as the Babu operating system. Every step is a toll gate, and everyone gets a cut. This creates a peculiar rhythm of governance. Everything is in perpetual crisis. Power cuts, ration shortages, crumbling roads, water scarcity, farmer suicides. Each is treated as a sudden emergency, demanding urgent intervention. But the emergency is never resolved, because it is the very mechanism through which the Neta reappears as savior. He rushes in with relief packages, loan waivers, or new subsidy schemes, each presented as a gift of generosity. The Babu enforces complexity, the Neta sells simplicity. One manufactures scarcity, the other sells abundance. The logic is circular. Procedural obstruction, forms, affidavits, inspections, and delays ensure ordinary citizens cannot act independently. Extractive mediation. The bureaucracy thrives on rent. Bribes at each step keep the lower rungs loyal to the hierarchy. Political rescue. The Neta positions himself as the only channel to bypass the obstruction, rewarding followers with selective relief. Perpetual emergency. By never actually fixing systemic problems, the cycle renews itself. New crises justify new interventions, each entrenching dependence. This is why relief is always piecemeal, arriving only after protests, strikes, or electoral pressure. Farmers block highways, students march, workers strike. Only then do concessions arrive. Yet the deeper architecture remains untouched. The crisis is not solved, but managed, long enough to quiet discontent until the next eruption. The appearance of dysfunction is the real function, to sustain a system where poverty and protest keep the Babu Neta order alive. It is a cycle of deliberate disorder. The state first creates obstacles, then positions itself as the savior. Poverty is not relieved, it is curated. Misery is not solved, it is managed. Citizens are reduced to clients in a giant patronage machine. The political capture of votes. The most sinister dimension of Babu Neta Raj is not just the extraction of bribes or the staging of emergencies. It is the capture of the citizen's political will itself. Poverty is not merely tolerated, it is curated, because a poor and dependent population is easier to mobilize on polling day. Dependency on subsidies, cash transfers, reservations, and favors becomes the raw material of electoral politics. Each scheme is marketed as compassion, but its deeper logic is control. When a family's ration card, loan waiver, or housing allotment is tied to the goodwill of a party functionary, the citizen's ballot is no longer an act of free choice. It is a compulsory gesture of gratitude or fear. This creates a perverse inversion of democracy. Instead of parties competing to create prosperity, they compete to keep citizens weak enough to need handouts. A worker without secure wages will cling to subsidized grain. A farmer crushed by credit will beg for loan forgiveness. A student locked out of opportunity will fight for caste-based quotas. Each group is kept in a state of partial relief and permanent insecurity, never allowed to become independent, always kept one election away from fresh dependency. The mechanics are visible every election season. State governments announce sudden electricity bill waivers or distribute free cycles and laptops. Central schemes are rolled out in dramatic fashion, with the ruling party's logo splashed across them. Cash mysteriously flows into villages days before polling. What should be a public treasury for all citizens is turned into a vote-buying machine. The cost is profound. Genuine prosperity, based on secure rights, free trade, and the liberty to build one's future, never arrives because it would dismantle the very system of control. If citizens had dignity and independence, they would not sell their votes for handouts. So the Babu Neta Nexus ensures that crises never end and relief never suffices. The cycle of dependency is thus also a cycle of electoral capture. In this way, the ballot itself becomes colonized. What should be the citizen's weapon to hold rulers accountable is transformed into the ruler's instrument to manufacture loyalty. The outcome is a hollow democracy. Elections are frequent, but liberty is scarce. The cycle of despondence. Thus, the cycle continues. Loot, bureaucrats extract bribes and dominate through procedure, while netas propose short-term alleviation. The cycle continues. Domination. Citizens are kept weak, dependent on permissions, petitions, and their neta messiah. Votes. Misery is converted into electoral loyalty. Re-entrenchment. The cycle repeats, deeper each time. The outcome is a nation where energy is wasted in survival, not creation, where entrepreneurship is stifled, not encouraged, where liberty is replaced by favors. The way out, Swan Tantra. Breaking this cycle requires dismantling the monopoly of Babu and Netta. Rights must be rooted in communities, enforceable without begging before officers or politicians. Panchayats, wards, and mahallas must gain fiscal power, judicial forums, and civic autonomy. When people can govern their own streets and markets, they will no longer need to line up at the Netta's rally or the Babu's counter. Babu Netta Raj is not destiny, it is design. Swatantrata is the reversal of that design. Liberty from below, prosperity from freedom, dignity without permission.